So in today's video, I'm just going to go over this concept called a life map, which is something I used last year. So with 2025 ahead of us, you set a ton of New Year's resolutions, and then 1 month through, you end up feeling overwhelmed, and then you end up just ditching a lot of your goals. So what this life map will do, it will let you pick and choose which goals are more meaningful and which ones you're willing to push off for later in your life. So let's just quickly get into it. First thing you're going to do is just draw a timeline. And this timeline here is a representation of your life. Now it could be any duration. You're going to start with your age, 25, and then time, 0. For this example, I'm just going to put age 40. In that case, that's 15 years from now. Okay, now that you have a timeline, obviously you can go back and adjust it, but that's what we need to get started. So we'll move forward to this brainstorming session. And so what you'll do is draw yourself in the middle, and then you're going to draw branches. Now each of these branches represents one of your goals. In this case, I'm just gonna throw on some ideas that are relatable to me, as well as some things that I find many people set as their New Year's resolutions. Okay, now that you've put in all your goals for the year, you want to go ahead and do some research. Do some research and see how long it will take for you to accomplish each one of these goals if you were to start today. So a lot of this will differ depending on your starting level. Okay, so I went ahead and labeled each of these for duration it would take to complete them. Obviously, becoming fluent in Spanish will exceed the 1 year goal, but these are all some things that you've set. Like I said, because your timeline is all dependent on how far you're wanting it. You want to go ahead and label each with just a letter, because we'll use these as reference for the timeline. Perfect. So I went ahead and labeled them, and then we can go ahead and plot them. Perfect, so I went ahead and plotted the timeline. Basically what you'll see right away is that there's a lot of goals here that are just crowded. They're all within the 1 year mark. And so this is where a lot of people will find themselves getting overwhelmed, right? Because you just have too much stuff going on here. If we go ahead and take a look at what these goals are, one of them is running a marathon along with learning to paint. So these two things here are both being accomplished within the 6-month time frame. It doesn't mean that you can't be doing these two things simultaneously, but this is where people run into issues because they overextend themselves. They put too much on their plate. And so one of them will eventually end up giving up because you realize how much time running to train for a marathon takes, and then how much consistency it takes to learning to paint. So from there, what you want to do is, one, either completely remove one option and just focus on one, or second, what you can do is what I think makes this life map so much more beneficial is you take this, learn to paint, for example, in this case it's E. So you take E and you kind of look at and see where you would have time to do it. So here you can see at the age of 27, I kind of have a lot of space here. Not much going on, but you can go ahead and let's just plop it here. So now your goals are spread out along this timeline. And so you're not going to feel as overwhelmed. With that being said, the reason why I decided to include learn to paint and run a marathon is because these two are actually related to my goals, and these are something that I had to take a look at in the year of 2024. What I ended up having to do was completely remove learn to paint and decided to do some inner thinking. Which would be more valuable to my life at this current moment? Which would make me more satisfied if I was to complete them? And it's not to say like I said, this is different for everyone. So for some people, learning to paint will be much more desirable. But for me in this situation, I knew right away that the marathon would be something that would feel much more accomplished. It's something that would bring much more possibilities in the future. And this is where I'm going to segue to my next point about looking at possibilities in the future. So not only does this chart or this brainstorm map end at one branch, this branch will continue to grow throughout your years, right? Another example is becoming fluent in Spanish. So this one here, it's something that I decided I need to start doing now. I can't push it off. And the reason being is very simple, and I would argue that most people will agree with me. What is more beneficial? Being able to speak fluently in Spanish at the age of 28 or being able to speak at the age of 40? Now, that's not to say it's not impressive or it's not you shouldn't waste your time learning a language at the age of 40. But I think it's safe to say that it's much more beneficial for you to learn it at the age of 28. And this is the big point which I'm trying to show with this life map, is because us ambitious people are looking further than 1 year. You know, we want to see where will this next goal take us in our life? What will us allow us to accomplish? And so becoming fluent in Spanish has so much opportunities for me, whether that's travel, whether that's job opportunity. And so if we move to learn to paint, the reason why I decided to not pursue this goal is because, in truth being, I don't know where it'll take me. I really don't know where learning to paint will take me. Hey guys, so I just want to quickly reiterate what I was talking about in that portion of the video. It's safe to say that there are some goals, some interests, some hobbies that are much more sought after, that will net positive your life much more dramatically than others. And so with that being said, it's not to say you shouldn't pursue some goals that won't dramatically change your life. You need to acknowledge some paths will take you down closer to your goals, closer to your ambitions. Rather, some might just kind of lead to a dead end, a plateau, and then you don't actually end up getting anything out of it. And obviously you're taking a gamble in this case. You're taking a risk. You don't necessarily know. I'm not saying that learning to paint will be a dead end. Sure, you might be able to bring out your creativity side. You might get into graphic design. You might do some freelance work. But if I'm trying to forecast my life, I don't see where this avenue will take me. It's just something that I want to do as my pastime. In terms of pastime though, I'm willing to just completely remove this, push it off further in my life. I'm willing to learn to paint in my 30s, 40s. You know what? I'll look at it once I'm there. So the main purpose of this life map is to reinforce the idea that your goals are worth striving for. It's just that a lot of times we will feel like we haven't made a lot of progress because these goals take a lot of time. And with that being said, our time is limited. So we cram a bunch of goals within the 1 year and then we feel overwhelmed and we don't end up accomplishing anything. With that being said, you don't want to let procrastination stray you away from accomplishing your goals, because what ends up happening, a year goes by and then you look back and you realize you didn't actually end up accomplishing anything. And with this life map, the timeline, as you're pushing these goals, these interests further in your life, it's not that you're gonna forget about them. It's that you were content and you've acknowledged that this passion or this goal of yours, this interest, this hobby can take a pause. It's not something that needs to be done right now. For example, there are some goals that are much more urgent. For example, if you're in school and your goal is to get higher grades, you can't push that off because it needs to be done now. Moving to something like reading a book and losing 20 pounds is surrounded here. And that's not to say you can't do them simultaneously, right? Let's say you set aside 30 minutes a day to read, you'll be finished that book in no time. Let's say you just count your calories, but you want to see, like I said, where this will take you, because look how much, I would argue that most of you will agree, you will get so much more benefit out of losing 20 pounds on reading a book. You'll become healthier. Here, let's say you want to get back into cycling. Or let's say you're coming back from an injury. And like I said, this is all subjective. Another thing that I wanted to quickly note is these goals here will not necessarily have one branch, but they'll have some stems building up to the main goal, right? So to lose 20 pounds, you need to lose 10 pounds first. To learn to play piano, you have to first learn the chords. So there's all these stepping stones to your ultimate goal. So just to quickly summarize the points that I was trying to go over here. First point, which is more beneficial? Which one will change your life? Which one's more urgent? Now, obviously, if this has anything to do with your job or your schooling, there's some things that might be more urgent, right? Like if you're wanting to get higher grades this year, yeah, you can't really push it off later in your life because you're in school now. Another point is you want to forecast your life. I know it's overwhelming to think about. This stuff is not easy. It's going to take you some time. Think deep about what you want to do with your life. What this is supposed to do is rule out the other options, because the truth is when you start one goal, you might jump to another and then you're like, oh, this isn't for me, so let me jump to this. And you're like, oh, I wish I stuck with it. And that's what you don't want. You don't want to look back and say, oh, I wish I continued to learn the piano, or I wish I just stuck to reading 30 minutes a day. It wasn't that big of a deal. Anything it may be, that's what I'm trying to help you guys figure out. And then one last point is you kind of want to be able to be proud of who you're becoming and what decision you're doing. You want to be able to say, hey, yeah, I am a pianist now. You know, or I am a painter, or yeah, I am a marathon runner, or yes, I am multilingual, whatever it may be. You want to be proud, you want to have that ambition. Realize, yeah, this took work and I am going to be able to have much more success in life because you've accomplished these things. And like I said, going back to my previous point, I'm not saying it's not beneficial to learn Spanish later in your life, and I'm not saying it's not beneficial to become a marathon runner, because it is quite incredible for anybody to run a marathon at any age. What do you think would be more valuable? What do you see would be more impressive in your life? And you need to be able to understand that everyone has different values, everyone has different opinions. All of this is subjective. At the end of the day, the opinion of nobody matters except for your own. And so if you don't write this down on your timeline and acknowledge how long some of these goals might end up taking, then you'll feel like you're just constantly in a loop. Versus if you write it down, you realize, okay, I gotta be doing this until the age of 28. That's when I can safely say I'll be fluent in Spanish. Or let's say learning the piano, you know, this is gonna take me a full year to learn this, so I can't expect to make progress so fast. Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. I appreciate you watching and listening. I wish you all the best, and see you in the next one.